Hi, I'm Tim Ives, and today I'm on the Cinematography podcast.
The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Ilya Friedman.
Hey, Ben.
Hello, Ilya. I'm afraid I can't do that, Ilya.
Oh, it's so funny. I watched a documentary on Kubrick today. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, did you? What's it called?
Kubrick on Kubrick, I believe it is. It was
Sweet.
It was on Canopy. It's free if you've got a library card, which I do. So it was awesome. So yeah,
I love Canopy so much.
I highly recommend the Kubrick documentary on there. It could have been my short end, but it's not. It's just a little bonus. If you got Canopy, check out Kubrick on Kubrick. It's fantastic.
I love Canopy. I've been an evangelist for Canopy ever since I found it maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. But we're not here to talk about Canopy. We are here to talk about who, Ilya? Who is on the show today?
On the show today, I'm really, really happy. Someone I'd want to have on the show for a long time, Tim Ives. Tim Ives is a fantastic cinematographer, perhaps best known maybe for shooting the Stranger Things series, but also he's got
Never heard of it.
He's got a new movie out based on the Judy Blume book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And it is fantastic. And I highly recommend it to anyone. They should check it out. But before we get into the interview with Tim, what's our close focus for today? What are we talking about? What's going on in the industry?
And now, close focus.
Well, when I look at the Jeopardy board for close focus today, it says potpourri. I don't know. What does that mean?
Potpourri, that's usually a little bit of everything. So here we go. Let's do a quick rundown of what's happening. Are you a fan of the Bourne movies, the Jason Bourne movies? There's a new one in the works. Yeah. So yeah,
is Paul Greengrass making it?
It doesn't look like it. It looks like it's going to be director Edward Berger, who is following up All Quiet on the Western Front.
I'd say he's cashing in on the Oscar wins of All Quiet on the Western Front.
Highly likely.
I still say to this day, biggest upset in the cinematography Oscars since we've started this podcast. Mm-hmm. I haven't gone back to 1974 to see oh no, I can't believe, Godfather 2 won it. Anyway.
Okay, so Warner Brothers is setting up screenings of Coyote versus Acme. Are you aware of this?
I was not aware. I knew about the big kerfuffle around Coyote versus Acme, where Warner Brothers decided to give it the old Batgirl treatment.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It got axed and turned into a tax write-off. I hear they're not doing it with anything else, but certainly there was a period of time where they were just like, oh yeah, let's take the tax write-off, and got rid of some stuff. And then Coyote versus Acme was one of those. So
are you familiar with an old Joel Lamott documentary called Demon Lover Diary?
Oh, I've heard of it, but no, I've never seen it.
So it's about the making of a movie, I believe it was in the mid-'70s, called Demon Lover, and it's co-directed by two guys, and one of them cut off his pinky and faked it as an industrial accident so he could take the insurance money and use it to finance the movie. That's what Warner Brothers is doing when they axe an entire movie, is they're doing what the Demon Lover guy did. That I think we should call it Demon Lovering it. But it's that movie's bonkers, by the way. It's just ripshit bonkers. Ted Nugent turns up in it at one point.
Wow.
But yeah, it's nuts. But more than that, it's I always think about literally damaging yourself for a profit, and that's what Warner Brothers is doing. Also, but they're setting up screenings. So
they're setting up screenings. They're setting up the screenings to streamers so they can buy it. They got so much negative publicity for axing this movie that I guess there was some leaks or some people out there who are really interested to see it or had been looking forward to it for some time. And so now they're trying to sell it to another streaming service. So Amazon Prime is sort of in the front running position right now. It sounds like.
Interesting. Well, I'd be interested to see it. I think John Cena's pretty awesome, and I'm a big fan of Peacemaker. I don't know anything about this movie other than it's called Coyote versus Acme, and obviously that's a Warner Brothers cartoon reference, and I think John Cena is a cartoonishly hilarious guy. So, based on that, I would be interested to watch a trailer and know more, and I think it is freaking idiotic that Warner would would try and bury an entire movie. And I still think that they should release Batgirl. You know, there have been a lot of bad superhero movies and or superhero movies that have underperformed, I should say. The Flash famously underperformed. But I think that if they released Batgirl, you know, even if they just released it straight to streaming, I think people would want to see it. I watched The Flash just so I could see Michael Keaton as Batman again, and I would do that with Batgirl because I know they pulled the exact same gimmick. Also, it's got Brendan Fraser in it. Like, there's a lot of reasons to want to see that stuff, and I think it's a little crazy that a studio would do that. Would demon lover it that hard? I'm gonna make this a thing.
Well, here, just to quickly round out the news wrap up for, rundown for what's going on this week. A lot of buzz about Beyonce's new concert movie. It's going to be out in about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit less than 2 weeks, 10 days from now, December 1st. Beyonce's Renaissance World Tour is looking to capitalize on the Taylor Swift, path that she has blazed.
Gotta do it.
So that's coming out really soon. And then Barack Obama was just in LA meeting at CAA for representation on all sorts of scripted and unscripted projects. And now I remember from my time at CAA, every once in a while people would come in and they would have these big meetings in a big conference room, and there would be pitches and all kinds of things going on. I can only imagine what it's like to have, the 44th president of the United States coming in there and having all these people, pull out all of their shiniest projects and things that, maybe the former president wants to be involved in something. So I think it's interesting.
Wouldn't it be great if Barack Obama was like, I want to be involved in the next Saw movie? I would be so happy.
I know that would make you happy. I'm gonna say that it's unlikely.
I think it's quite unlikely. Yeah, that's true.
Although I remember some years ago, there was a spy thriller, CIA, FBI spy thriller book that he recommended. It wouldn't surprise me if he got involved with something that was about political intrigue and espionage. That seems like it's all very much in his wheelhouse. So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's just about going to do it for our news roundup. Let's get to the interview with Tim Ives.
Here we go.
The Cinematography Podcast Interview.
I'm joined now by cinematographer Tim Ives. Tim, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. This show is about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image, and we talk a bit about business and things like that. You are welcome to talk about as much tech and things that you want, because I am a very technical person, and I do that in sort of like my Monday through Friday. One of the questions I really like to ask people right off the bat, because I firmly believe that you have to be able to marry the technical and the artistic to be good at your job. And you are someone who's very good at your job.
Oh,
where do you come down on that line? Do you feel like you're more artist? Do you feel like you're more technician? Where does that split come from?
I would say definitely not technician, but I am a bit of a geek when it comes to going over to Panavision or Arri and looking at all these lenses and oohing and awing. And it's like being in a candy store for me. But when it comes down to like the real super technical stuff, I'm not as proficient on that. And it's not my main strength. I think my main strength is more on the visual appreciation of light, appreciation of film, and just figuring out what would be the best thing for the project at hand. And that's what I love to do. And the technical stuff is fun, but there are guys that they can write books on this stuff, and that probably isn't me. Maybe a kid's book, maybe, I don't know, but.
Well, Tim, you've been around for quite a while, and you've worked a lot in television, but also in movies. And your latest project, which I know was shot a while ago, is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And it's wonderful. I've seen it. And we're going to talk about all of that. But I kind of want to go back a little bit here before we get into it, because I've been really paying attention to your work ever since the pilot of Mr. Robot, which for me was like, I remember it became on this podcast, we have this section called Short Ends where we talk about like our obsession of the week. And after I saw that pilot, that was my obsession of the week. I was like, wow, what is this? What is this show? And I've really been tracking your career with a lot of interest since then. And of course, you've done Stranger Things and Power and a bunch of different television series, perhaps Girls, maybe you're best known for Girls because you did all these seasons of Girls and Stranger Things. Which format do you like working in most? Do you like working in television? Do you like working in the feature world? What's your preference?
Well, I broke into narrative through television and series and Girls. Well, actually, How to Make it in America was my first real series, and we did that for 2 years. I think since then, and since Stranger Things and where I'm at, I'm more doing limited series these days than episodic, that reoccurring shows. Not to say that I'm against doing one of those again, but that's been where I've been at, between Love and Death, which is on HBO, just came out, and a few other shows. But it's I like them both. I really love working on Margaret. I hadn't done a film in a while. It was a great opportunity for me, and the time frame of it, I think, is really optimum. You're not doing something intensely for almost a year. You're doing something for a half a year, pretty much, and it's one director and one vision, and you can really hone in, and everybody can hone in and work towards the goal.
Yeah. Tell me how you got your start in this business. It is kind of a crazy business, and everyone's got a completely different, origin story of how you break in and where you start working. Where did you start? Did you wake up one morning and say, I'm a DP, or was it much more an incremental sort of traditional process of starting at the bottom and moving on up?
Well, really, I was working up in Boston doing corporate video, and a friend of a mine invited me down to New York to hang out on, of all things, the Guiding Light, the soap opera. He knew that I was interested in this business, and he was gripping on that. And I came down, hung out for a week, and that was it. My wife, which wasn't my wife then, we both came out in New York, and I started PAing, and that was wonderful. And then I did some interning with Jack Donnelly, who's an incredible cinematographer, and did the main workshops to get more familiar with the camera equipment. I came in mostly through camera, not lighting. And then really moved to LA to sort of jumpstart everything. Instead of waiting another 20 years and moving up the ladder, I really wanted to shoot. So I moved to Los Angeles to the Bolex in early 90s and tested, starved, and hooked up with a UCLA graduate named Frank Sacramento, who is a music video director. And we were off. We did a spec thing, and then we were off shooting music videos. The 90s were a really great time to sort of be a little avant-garde in film, and to try new things. And I think it was a great time to break into it. And so that's what I did. I broke in through music videos, and then the commercial industry caught on, and we started doing commercials. And ultimately, I really wanted to move into narrative. Late aughts is when I started really trying to break into narrative.
Do you think that you have a signature style? Is there something that is the Tim Ives look? Because I go back through your body of work, and I'm looking at a lot of things, and I feel like I've got a couple of inklings into it, but you're kind of a chameleon. I feel like you really do, take on a lot of different sorts of things. How would you describe your style of cinematography?
I really appreciate you saying that, because I've never wanted to be pigeonholed. I don't think anybody really wants to be. And I've always wanted to approach projects with a fresh eye, and to take sometimes the opposite of what I did last. Like right after Margaret, I did Love and Death, which is basically like a murder, a real town murder. And it was with no redemption. So that was the opposite of Margaret. Lots of redemption and no murders. I try. I don't really want to bring a certain style that I think is like my style to author anything with. I want to disappear more behind the storyline and support the storyline, of course, but not show my hand too much, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, of course. You want to keep the cards pretty close to the vest, as they say.
I don't want to.
Yeah. So you came up in the era of film. Film is now I'm going to say, an aesthetic and almost a luxury item. Most of the world has moved on to digital capture and production.
Yeah.
I've been talking to a lot of people lately who've only kind of come up in digital and didn't have that history. I came up in film, and film was basically, when film went away, I also, my freelance sort of career also went away. I basically didn't do very much work after there was no more film. My question for you is, did that change the way that you work? Did it change the way that you light? Did it change your approach? Having this one particular medium fading to the background, did you find you had to reinvent yourself? Did it make any impact on your life whatsoever? Some people, it's really easy for them to do that. What was it like for you?
Well, initially, the video, when it was all switching over, we didn't have the greatest equipment to work with and the greatest technology. It wasn't like film, and we missed it sorely. And I think since then, obviously, it's gotten pretty incredible. And I've felt a responsibility as somebody who came up through film to sort of keep things looking as much as like film as humanly possible. That softness and that non-clinical thing that we love, and the roll-off, the focus, and so more selective focus, and keeping my eye with that film look. So it wasn't that hard. I mean, also the support behind it. You have digital technicians helping you. Now you have monitors that are really, calibrated, and you're looking at what you're getting, and it's helpful that way for sure. But at first I was very nervous about it, and I really lamented the loss of film. But then, I embraced it. I was worried that it wasn't going to be good, and if it wasn't going to be good enough, I might have packed up my bags and started working at McDonald's or something. But it is quite good, and it's gotten better and better, and I certainly enjoy it. And the cameras that Sony and Panavision and Arri Red are all making these days. The sensors are remarkable, and the lenses, new and old, are really fun to sort of play with and fine tune to get the look for whatever project you have coming up. It's pretty fun.
How do you approach the visuals of a project that you're working on? Do you have a particular process where you start to visualize what it is that you're working to create? I know it's a collaborative part. You work with directors, you work with production designers and other folks, but how does for you, the journey of words into images take place?
I think before I actually arrive to wherever I'm shooting, or if I'm shooting in New York, before I'm actually on the project, I start looking. I've read the script a few times. I start looking at films that have meant a lot to me, that seem like they might be able to draw something from them. And oftentimes I do. And then I bring those to the director. And more often than not, they're the same films that the director has been looking at. So that's the start of it. And then I think we probably talk about light and color first before we talk about camera movement. Some films, the camera moving the whole time, and all over the place and turning around corners, and some are more observational, which I think Margaret is of the latter. So looking at light and color, we then look at photographers. In the case of Margaret, I mean, I don't know if you want to go into that, but I'm
ready to get into Margaret. Let's do it. Let's get into Margaret. Right. I love the movie. It was so much fun to watch. There's some great laugh out loud moments. And of course it's based on, God, I don't even know how old it is. Probably 50-year-old Judy Blume book by this point, or maybe 40 something years. I don't remember the year it was.
I think it's 1970, I think, is when Judy put it out.
Yeah. So 53 years old or something like that. Anyway, I loved it. I thought it was great. Tell me how you came to the project. How did this land on your doorstep?
Well, I got to think back. It's been about 3 years since I actually got the first phone call, but I got a call from my agent, like it usually happens, and they were interested in me because I'd worked with kids, and they probably checked around, and it seemed like maybe I had the right temperament for it. And then the funny thing was, Kelly Fremon Craig was the director of it, and we had just watched Edge of 17, which was her previous film. Not because I had an opportunity to work with her, but we just happened to watch it because I kind of love all those kind of films, and I really loved Edge of 17. So then when I put the two and two together, it's the same person. And I'm like, okay, well, this karmically, or something's happening in the universe that I'm getting called for this. So I really got to pay attention to this, and we just hit it off on the phone. Jim Brooks is a legendary producer who is a part of it, and he was with us every day, and remarkable human being. But Kelly's enthusiasm and love and commitment to this film was very inspiring, and I latched onto that right away. I mean, this is a person who really was not going to screw this movie up, and be true to Judy and respect Judy, and she did that all the way through. And we had a really fun process in figuring out what it is, what the look of the movie is going to be.
Yeah, it's a delightful movie. I don't say that about too many movies, but this movie is a delight, and it really is a coming of age movie that I feel like is true to the book and also feels timeless. It doesn't necessarily feel like, it's a period piece. It's set in the 1970s. So how does that look come about? It's a timeless story. It's kind of a timeless look. It feels true to the era. How do you approach that? How do you make the past feel contemporary and also still stay in the past? It's an interesting balancing trick that you guys pull off on this.
It's very tricky because we didn't want it to feel too dusty and faded, like it was a movie meant for, now we're going back in time. We wanted it to feel, obviously back then there were no cell phones, no computers, the kids had a different life, but we wanted it to have a feel that both had a bit of nostalgia and in your memory, but also not feel like it's too, I don't want to, well, I'm going to say it Hallmarky. I mean, just so overly sentimental.
Yeah.
And
Schmaltzy.
Kelly and I, Yeah, and Kelly and it was a great project for me to try to like figure out and get inside her head. What does this want to look like? And I showed her so many things, and she's like, "No, not that, not that, not that, not that." And it was a lot of, she's a writer, so she's full on like she's more of a writer than I think she'll admit to say that she's a visualist. But we found this look, and I'll show you who it's from. This is a photographer who I've loved for years, named Tina Barney. Who's a New England photographer from the 80s, and her work. Well, you can see even the front feels like the bedroom of the girls, But it had a lot of natural light and feels like documentary, but also a little bit kind of studio. Anyway, she's a wonderful photographer, and when we looked at this book together, it was like a eureka moment, and that was it. We found that, and then we started talking about camera movement and the simplicity versus complex, ways of filming, and we were off and running.
So the aesthetic really comes from Tina Barney, you said, and it was sort of like your North Star as just sort of like the style that you wanted to embrace?
It was a jump off point. All these pictures are from the 80s, and it was a jump off point. The look of it had a little bit of amber kind of quality to it, like an old Kodak Gold 100 film. And they also it was lucky for us, the wallpaper and everything was from the 70s and all those pictures too, but it helped us find the color because it felt contemporary, like you were just saying, but also, it didn't feel like it was out of place to say that was 1972. And we didn't really we wanted to say we were 1970, 1971, but we never wanted to really say it in a way that couldn't feel like this could be a more modern time.
Yeah, it's a really lovely palette. It's a really lovely of colors of light and of production design going through this. Sometimes sort of softer earth tone pastels, but never like never over the top. It never was like, hey, it screamed, this is 1970 something. It's an interesting, inviting, almost visual, welcoming envelope that I feel like you kind of fall into, where it's like, in my mind, I remember things a bit like what's in Margaret. It's a bit like in this movie. It's not, totally over the top and everything was gold and orange and, and these really very, very specific sort of things that you see, I'd say like turned up to 11 in a lot of other, period type of pieces.
Yeah.
It feels like, the real world. So you've got your colors, you've got your sort of visual style. As you're breaking down the script, working with a director who tends to be more about the written word, and this is very, very true. There's a lot of directors who come from, acting first, or come from writing first, or come from the visual first. If you're working with someone who is more about the written word, what do you see your role is as, a collaborator? Do you talk more about the visuals, or trying to work more about the stories, how to interpret that story as visuals?
I think I interpret the story as visuals for sure, because like I was saying, I'm here to support the words, and that's the Bible, that's the whole thing. And she wrote it, she transcripted it for the film. So we would just talk about the scenes and how we see them, and she knew what she wanted. She absolutely did when we got into it, and I just didn't want to have a heavy hand. I wanted to. We both wanted it. Everything had to feel like it could be like a snapshot or a real picture, and nothing too theatrical. So that was really the main thing, I think.
Do you have a favorite sequence in the movie, or a favorite scene, something that stands out to you as something that you particularly?
It's silly, but I do. It's when she's dancing around in her room, and my camera operator, Wilda Barron, my B camera operator, who's been with me for a long time, and she's a dear friend. We gave it to her because it was Margaret kind of dressing up and dancing around the room, and really a free-spirited moment. And she and Wilda we just shut the doors and we let them go. I don't even think we could have playback, or maybe we had wireless playback, but they were doing 360s in the room. And it was a fun thing because I lit it in a way that they could just move around, but there were areas that she could pop into and get a little more of dramatic light. And I love it. I just love that whole sequence. To me, it just brings up the joy of childhood, and I love it.
When you're working on a project, especially when you've got a lot of credits under your belt, do you ever start to almost deja vu? Like you're setting something up. I mean, you're working with kids, you're working with different environments. It's a very different look than Stranger Things. But if you're always having to do something new, that's really difficult. It's always really difficult to try to always be reinventing the wheel. Do you ever lean back on hey, I know if I do this particular technical thing, or if I do this particular artistic thing, I'm going to be able to get there faster, a cheat sheet, so as to get your desired effect. What does your previous work do to inform your current project when you're working there? Are you just trying to really think, I don't want it to look like that, I got to make it different? Or are you saying, like, I can use a little bit of that, a little pinch of that, a dash of this?
I don't think I make a conscious choice to borrow from work that I've done in the past. But I think when you're in a situation, there's always a time constraint. You're all of a sudden, you have 3 hours till this is over, but you got a 3-pager, and you're like, we have to get this done in a way that serves it. And how can I shoot this that I don't have to have 14 different angles? I think I use those experiences from my past to be able to navigate, to get those 3 hours done successfully. But that's more of a getting the work done kind of thing. But I think I've been around long enough now that I've screwed up enough things to know not to screw them up again, and I've seen I know where the pitfalls are, and I know what works, what doesn't work. So I know myself a little bit better as I've gotten older, and how far I can go. But I still like that feeling of just outside of the zone of comfort. That's usually the sweet place to be. Not where you're like, this is no brainer today. No, I like being a little bit just outside. Like, I'm going to go for this, but I don't know if it is great. But usually it turns out pretty well if that's the way I feel about it.
I think that can be very difficult to make a cohesive image across a period piece in particular with your day interiors, your day exteriors, your night interiors, your night exteriors. Is there anything that you use do you work with the DIT to take still frames and being able to match things back, when you go back and forth? How do you make sure that you keep that sort of cohesive look through all the different styles of scenes that may come up in a day?
Well, it first starts with building a LUT that was based on what we liked about Tina Barney's, and we did some tests, and we built a LUT that Skip Kimball, our colorist out at Company 3, helped us navigate. And I could also, if the LUT was acting a little bit funny, or if we found things about the LUT that we did like or didn't like, we adjusted along the way. And these days, you just send a file, and he sends it right back, just like an email, and plug it in, and it's remarkable. There you go. We had a great DIT on this job, Jason Johnson. He was great. He keeps an eye on things as well. And we do have stills to match. And so it makes life a little bit easier than it used to be back in the film days, as far as, a little less terrifying to have to match a scene that you have to come back to after a week being away from it. But I don't always have a DIT, but I try to take, when I don't have a DIT and my computer's hooked up, and I still grabs of everything, so that way I can look back at it later on. Yeah.
Is there a genre that you like working in most? Is there a particular style of work that you think speaks to you most?
I think I'm going to borrow this from Tom Hanks, because he said something and it stuck with me. And I'm going to misquote Tom, but he said, I just want to work on stories with flawed characters with hopes of redemption. And it really is what I want, what I like, what's the best thing. And I think that kind of storytelling is wonderful, whether it's underwater or in outer space, in another country. And, we had a conflicted character in Margaret who was trying to figure things out. And then she realized she was going to be okay in the end. And that's great, especially when you think about how terrifying it can be to be a kid.
I think that Margaret really does a particularly great job of capturing everyone's sort of like first moment of terror of adolescence, of sort of that preteen moving into the future, and what exactly does this mean for me? And I think that's really sort of the heart of the movie. It gives everyone who is beyond that age, or is that age, a moment of reflection of like what it was like for them. Was there something in particular that really appealed to you about the script, or appealed about the story, that made you decide this is the movie I want to do?
I have 3 kids, 2 daughters, and I thought the subject matter is something that men and boys tend to be a little bit squeamish about. And my hope was that a movie like this would just open up the conversation, really, and not make it something that's weird. The first time every guy has it, not every guy, but men at some point have had to go to the grocery store to buy tampons, and the first time it can be a little bit rough, but it shouldn't be, because it's a natural thing, and it's like, why are we putting a stigma on it? So I felt like a little bit of a duty, and like that was my coming in. And I learned a lot. Believe me, I learned a lot on this movie. It was a great experience, basically.
So I know a few people who've seen this movie, and I showed it to my family, and everyone really liked it. What has the reaction been? Have you seen it with an audience? Have you seen it with your family? Have you gotten feedback from other people? What's been the reaction to Margaret so far?
Well, I saw it. I saw it in test audiences originally. It was very high scoring in the test audiences, which was great. And this was before color and before sound and orchestration came in. So I didn't get to see it in the theater, but my family went, and I have a lot of friends that went and saw it. I was overseas on another project when it came out. But the feedback I've gotten from people I've been working with since then in commercials has been really, really great. And people send me pictures of their daughter on a plane, the blanket at night glued to it. And, it's like, you can't ask for more than that. And, I think ultimately your family is going to tell you if you did a good job or not. And so they're the highest critics I have. And my kids all loved it. And it meant a lot to me that they saw it and that they liked it. They're the biggest critics I have, I think. They'll tell me if they don't like it.
I'm really glad to hear that. I think it's a great movie. I think everyone should go out and see this. I think that its timing couldn't be better because I know this is the time of year when it's awards season. People are starting to get screeners, and I hope that a lot of people take a look at this movie and it gets some attention. It certainly gets viewed. Where can people find you online? Or are you online? Do you do any sort of social media? Do you have an official website? If someone wanted to track you down, is there a way for them to see what you're working on besides all of the stuff that they can see in the streaming services and that is out there?
Yeah, I have a pretty simple website. It's my name, timives.com, and it has links to basically trailers of things that I've done. So there's that. I have a presence on Instagram where I take my camera out. I do these little photo safaris, and I take a walk and try to get a good picture a day if I can, and throw them up every now and then. But they're not really. They're just really for me and trying to hone my eye and keep busy. And I was in Romania on a show in Spain almost all of last year and a bit of this year, and that gave me a good opportunity to kind of really dive into my still photography as well. But that's just for myself.
Yeah, well, that's great. You've been really generous with your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I think this is a great place to leave it, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Me too. Thank you so much.
All right. So that was Tim Ives. So great chatting with you. That was so much fun. I really enjoyed that conversation. I can't wait to have Tim back on the show again.
Sweet, sweet. So Ilya, I think you said earlier that today we had to pay some freaking bills.
Yes. Let's thank our friends at Aperture. Aperture, maker of fine lighting equipment that's being used on all levels of cinema now, from film students and wedding videographers all the way up to gigantic studio projects. Aperture is doing incredible stuff these days. They're making strides that I can't even believe. And in 9 days and 1 hour from the time of recording, it's Aperture's Black Friday. So they're going to have a big sale. And of course, that's also going on through all their dealers. So of course, you can buy them through Hot Rod Cameras. But Aperture has got all kinds of discounts, all kinds of sales. So if you were looking at Aperture products, they've got like a LS600X Pro plus F10 Fresnel and barn door kit. And it's like huge discount bundled savings. If you head over to Hot Rod Cameras, you'll find all of the Aperture stuff that live at that point. Black Friday, this is going to be big Aperture sale. Head to Hot Rod Cameras and stock up on any sort of discounted Aperture sale bundles that are out there.
And now, short ends.
So, Ben, it is our short end time of the show. It's when we talk about our pet obsession. It might be anything from across the spectrum of media or technology. What is your short end this week?
My short end this week is a documentary that is on HBO Max. Excuse me, Max. It's on Max. I feel sad endorsing Max, but it's called Albert Brooks Defending My Life. And it's a documentary about comedian, filmmaker, writer, director, actor, multi-hyphenate Albert Brooks. And it's directed by his lifelong friend who he even went to high school with, Rob Reiner, Oscar winner Rob Reiner. And the thing is, I'm old enough to remember Albert Brooks making a lot of movies, most specifically Defending Your Life, which is what, the title of this refers to. And Defending Your Life is a brilliant movie. But I honestly didn't really know the origin story of Albert Brooks. I didn't know about what a prolific figure he was on The Tonight Show and Merv Griffin and all these TV shows in the 60s and 70s, et cetera, et cetera. It's really fascinating. It's put together by his really good friend. It's got a lot of great interviews with people like Larry David and Sharon Stone and Jon Stewart, Sarah Silverman. And I just think it's a brilliant piece of work. And I think it's fascinating. And it made me laugh a lot. And the thing is that, like, a lot of times older comedy, Monty Python notwithstanding, like older comedy doesn't always pack the same laugh, doesn't always like get you, but his stuff does, because he was just kind of a surreal, absurdist guy who would go do these weird stage acts, and they really are funny. I actually feel like I walked away understanding Andy Kaufman better than I had before, because I never really got Andy Kaufman, and I feel like Andy Kaufman's kind of Albert Brooks if he were mean-spirited. Because they both did kind of a similar kind of like mess with your expectations kind of an act. So anyway, check it out. It's called Albert Brooks Defending My Life. And there's lots of interviews with modern day Albert Brooks. You probably will, like me, suddenly be like, oh, I forgot that he was in Drive. I forgot that he was in Finding Nemo. I forgot he was in Out of Sight. Like, he's just such a talented guy and just kind of disappears into so many things.
I remember seeing Defending Your Life all those years ago too. So that sounds cool. I'd totally check that out.
No, it's totally worth it. So Ilya, what is your pet obsession this week?
Well, it's something I just found out about a couple of days ago, and I haven't had a chance to watch, but I've seen the trailer, and now I've read the reviews, and it's called Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I don't know how you felt about the Edgar Wright movie Scott Pilgrim, but I thought it was great.
Loved.
I love, it seems like everything
I
Edgar Wright does.
I quote it regularly.
Do you really? Wow. Yeah. Okay. So they've basically taken the style of the original source material, the comic books, and turned it into a Netflix 8-part animated series. And it is not the comics. It is not the movie. It is like a reboot. It's like an alternate universe. It's like, I don't know exactly what it is, but the reviews online that I've read have been more or less positive. The ratings have been sort of all over the map, so I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch it. I'm probably going to binge a bunch of episodes. So really for me, it's like, I've had some trepidation. It's been my, I love Scott Pilgrim. I love Edgar Wright. All the entire cast is back together from the movie. They're all doing the voices for this animated, which looks right out of the comic book. So it's like, I guess I have, my trepidation is, am I concerned that maybe my love for the movie will diminish if this doesn't like work out right? But, I like the source material. I like everything so much. I kind of feel like, no matter what they do, it'll probably be great, but I don't know. I haven't made an effort to watch it. I am going to probably do it over Thanksgiving. I'm probably going to do it over the next few days and watch it. So I'm excited for it. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off looks super cool. I'll have to report back and let you know how it is.
It's great because like when the original Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie came out, which I want to say was 2011, all these people were in their like 20s and 30s. So now they're all in their 40s and 50s. So fun.
And a whole lot of like, miles on the odometer since then too. Almost the entire cast has gone on to do tons and tons of other stuff. Some people were already, pretty well known, but
well, like, man, it features like a very young Brie Larson before she was in everything. There's a bunch of actors in it that are like that, where I feel like when I saw it, like
Captain America, Chris Evans. I mean,
like Allison Pill is in that movie.
Allison Pill,
like,
she's great.
Just a couple years after that, almost all of that cast suddenly was like blowing up, and I'm like, whoever cast this was right on the cutting edge of who they knew who was about to be huge. I just love that movie top to bottom. Jason Schwartzman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead and
Anna Kendrick.
Obviously Michael Cera and Brandon Routh, who I've worked with and who's the coolest guy ever, playing the meanest jerk he's ever played, and he's so good at it.
His character is so memorable too. I love that he's got vegan powers, which is just,
I love that.
It's so good.
Brandon Routh, I wish he worked. I wish he was in everything. He's such a cool guy. I have nothing bad to say about him. Cool dude. Anyway.
All right, Ben. So that's really just about it for this this episode. Who do we have to thank? How did the show happen?
As always, we have to thank Alana Cody, who's kicking all the ass and getting us all these kick-ass interviews. We have some awesome ones coming up, and we were, just before we recorded, scheduling some new ones. So this is the time of year when all the Oscar movies, the movies that are going to be winning Oscars next year, are coming out. And so some years we get more than others of the Oscar nominees, but I'm always like hoping that we can talk to all 5 Oscar nominees if it's humanly possible. And it is Alana who will make that happen if it is to happen. Also, just dumb luck because, who knows who the 5 that are
schedules
going
and
to
things. Yeah, exactly.
We also should thank Ben Katz, our fine and wonderful editor who makes us sound like not idiots week to week. And lastly, but never least, we should thank Kays Alekrakci, who, even as we speak, right now, I can hear him. I know he doesn't live anywhere near me, but I can hear him composing new music that we might be using in the show sometime soon.
I can't wait to hear it. That sounds exciting. Ben, where can people find you if they want to find you outside of this podcast?
benrock.com. Go to benrock.com. Just the way it sounds. And you can find whatever you want to find out about me.
Would you say that it's a personal brand website?
It's a lifestyle brand website.
It's
if your lifestyle is being me, and if your lifestyle is being me, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm super sorry. I'm super sorry. There's a lot of dog hair.
I'm on benrock.com right now, and it's a very well put together sort of like homepage here. But I really think you need a few more logos and a few more things. If you could like cram a few more in there, that would be the best.
Yeah, when I built that, I was like, I'm going to put a logo for every major company I've ever worked for up there, because like nothing says I'm a brilliant artist like corporate sellout.
You've got Shudder, HBO, Showtime, Warner Brothers, Sony, Universal, Imagine, Sci-Fi, FX, Revolution. There's a lot of things up there.
No exaggeration. I've actually worked for all of those companies.
Yeah. Oh, and look, and Penn and Teller. We did that one together.
Yeah, we did that together. That was fun.
Way back when.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if you ever saw, but the Penn and Teller thing we shot, they used it in an episode of Penn and Teller Bullshit.
I totally didn't see that. I would love to watch that. But wait a second. That wasn't for Penn and Teller's Bullshit. We didn't get paid for that.
No, you're absolutely right. And they asked me for that footage, and I was like, what are you going to do with it? And they said, they said, we're going to use it as B-roll in Penn and Teller Bullshit. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, like, they own the footage, so whatever.
Yeah, of course.
And so I brought it. And then when the episode ran, the whole last section of that episode of Penn and Teller Bullshit was our footage. So
it was our handiwork. 4
cameras. Yeah. You, myself, our friend Ryan Pollack, and my wife Alicia, each one of us on a camera at the Penn and Teller Theater, and it was them doing a trick where they do a thing with the American flag, and they fold it up and they make it disappear or something, and they just play that trick out in its entirety from our footage.
Okay, well, good for them and good for us. That was fun.
Shot on the HVX 200, by the way. And
state of the art back then.
Back then, the P2 cards were crazy expensive, and I had to rent like $20,000 worth of P2 cards that I rented from Moviola or something. And we each had to like be hot swapping them while we were filming so that we could get a continuous take. What a pain in the dick.
Remember the era of Firewire?
I do. I have a Firewire cable right here.
It's pretty funny because like there is still some Firewire stuff out there, and the only way now to get that into like USB is 3 cables that you buy, which cost $88. How do I know this? Because I've done it recently. It's $88 if you want to go Firewire to USB. It's a huge, it's just ridiculous.
And on that note, where can people find you? That was all an answer to how people can find me.
Okay, well, it was worthwhile. Hot Rod Cameras. I'm usually at hotrodcameras.com. Well, a good portion of the time. If I'm not there, they know how to get a hold of me. But if you want to find me, reach out to me through Hot Rod Cameras or, sometimes on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a good place to reach me too.
I find you on LinkedIn all the time, actually. I see your activity on LinkedIn. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty much posting the podcast there. Pretty much reminding people like, hey, there's this podcast. You should be listening. So
our widely successful podcast.
I noticed the numbers are climbing, so, we're going in the right direction.
Yay. All right, Ilya, you want to take us out?
Thanks for watching, listening. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for consuming our content.
I think we got to come up with a new sign-off because we're trying to serve too many masters here between the visual and the auditory. Bye.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.